Hi, I'm Femi, and you're in the stream. Today, travelling around the world using only a bike, kayak and rowboat. Yes, you heard that right. British adventurer Sarah Outen did exactly that, and she joins us to talk about her amazing expedition. So many questions. How did she do it? Why did she do it? Those are my two that I've got, but also online, people wanting to talk to Sarah as well.
Sarah had many people following her from all around the globe, and they're following her journey online. So Isabella here in the UK, look at what she tweeted, about to head off down the Thames to accompany Sarah on the last leg of her epic journey. Over in the US, Kevin wrote this, Sarah, keeping you company for a bit from afar. 7 hours on my kayak, Southport, Maine. And they are not the only ones. Today we're joined by two women who were keeping up with Sarah from a distance, Amy Lucas and Mary Catterlin, who are about to take on an adventure of their own. We're also joined by two women who were with Sarah during parts of her travels, Justine Kurgenben, an adventurer and filmmaker and friend of Sarah, and Jill Fredston, an adventurer as well, who met Sarah in Alaska. And you at home, you can be part of this conversation too. Tweet in with hashtag AJStream.
Hi, I'm Clark Carlisle. I'm a sports commentator and I'm in the stream.
Earlier this month, crowds gathered at Tower Bridge in London to cheer British adventurer Sarah Outen as she kayaked her way back home from an epic journey that has taken 4.5 years to finish. She called her expedition the London to London via the world, and it started out on the 1st of April 2011 from Tower Bridge. Sarah kayaked, rowed and biked her way around the Northern Hemisphere, crossing 3 continents and 2 oceans. That's more than 25,000 miles. Hello, Sarah.
Hello there.
You must be exhausted.
I am quite tired, and I tell you what, watching all those little clips there, quite emotional, just reliving the journey like that.
in a good way or a painful way?
Definitely in a good way, particularly seeing the clips of coming under Tower Bridge a few weeks ago now, and just that sort of big grin on my face and the tears that were sort of coming and going, and just summing up a pretty incredible few years of journeying.
What hurts? Does anything hurt right now?
Right now, there's a few muscles that are a little bit tired and sort of out of place, I suppose. So I'm working with a physio to try and put that right and get back to a normal body.
This wasn't the first trip you ever did, which is good because it was pretty huge. What was the first one you did where you could say, okay, that's a real adventure?
Well, I think from sort of an early age, I was out making little adventures, sleeping outside, and through sort of my teenage years at school, I did the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, whereby we were sort of out for a few days at a time, camping and walking and so on. But for me, my first big expedition, certainly by myself, was in 2009, where I rowed across the Indian Ocean from Australia to Mauritius. And I spent 4 months out at sea in a 6.5 metre rowing boat. And it was that journey that sort of really just blew my mind, and I suppose gave me the confidence to think of something bigger, and also sort of the inspiration too as well, to think, wow, I just loved living out in the wild for 4 months by myself on that little boat. I want to experience more of that on different oceans, and I want to travel across land and meet people and see landscapes change over such a big journey. So that's how it came to be.
And Sarah, I think it's reasons like that you just described is why people online are saying you are so inspirational to us. So this is a tweet we got from someone named Dig Bones, that's the handle. And we asked, what makes you so inspirational? And Dig says, your resilience, determination in the face of physical and mental struggles. You are an every woman and not a superwoman, and so you're relatable. Now, to me personally, I think you're still a little bit of a superwoman because I know that I couldn't do that, but I'm wondering if you can rewind a little bit and tell us about some of the prep that goes into taking the kind of journey like you took.
Well, I think the big thing to remember is that it is just like any other journey, any other project, really. It might be scalable, so it might be a bit bigger than most projects that we take on, perhaps, or, you know, it was a 2.5 year project at the outset. That's what we imagined it would be, you know, working out a timeline and working out a route. I say we because it definitely wasn't just a solo mission. Because it was going to be a series of linked expeditions, I knew that I would need to have a support team who helped manage things and activate things from afar. And so really it is, as I say, like any other project, just perhaps a little bit bigger than some projects, in that you work out where you are and where you want to go in terms of your goals, and you chunk it up, you break it up and work out what you need to do in a sort of phased basis to make it happen. And I think that is just like any project, really.
I see Jill nodding. Jill, you gave Sarah some advice on the Alaskan leg of her tour. In terms of skills, what kind of skills do you need to set out an adventure that's the scale that Sarah did?
Well, you know, you often have people saying, oh, I'd love to do the trips you do if only I had the experience. Yeah. And I think it makes all of us laugh because you get the experience by doing and by living through your bad decisions. And I noticed that you listed, you know, she did this trip by rowboat, by bike, by kayak, but really you do these trips by brain. You know, there's a lot of intimidation factor that happens. People are so quick to tell you what you can't do and all the ways you're going to die. And I think that this just
all the ways you're wait, back up here. All the ways you're going to die. Okay.
Oh, there's many. And they love to tell you all the ways.
How many ways have people told you how that you might possibly die on a trip, Jill?
Oh, I would say it's you know, you're told constantly how you're going to drown, how the polar bears are going to, you know, get you, how the grizzly bears are going to shred your tent. I mean, people's imaginations are endless, and it's a head game. It's a head game to just take things a step at a time. I mean, for me, and I'm sure for Sarah, rowing isn't something I do. It's some way I am. It's affected the way I see, I think, I am, I be. You know, it's a way of looking at the world. And these trips, although people love to paint them as adventures, you know, they're not necessarily a function of undue strength or bravery. It's repetitive motion over time, and they're a way of life. They're just a way of exploring the world.
See, Justine, have anybody told you how many ways you could possibly die on one of your trips? Because I'm going to show a little clip, and I could just see here in the clip many ways that you could have died. So there was a point in the trip where Sarah called you up. Sarah, do you want to, let's re-dramatise the call that you gave to Justine. Now, hey, on my satellite phone, Justine, what did you ask her?
Well, I was in the middle of the Pacific at the time, in 2013, and I'd set out rowing from Japan, maybe 3.5, 4 months before, with the goal of rowing to Canada on the other side of the Pacific. But the weather was really poor, and I was continually getting pushed backwards in my rowing boat, just not making the ground towards Canada. So we looked at the options of other places to go, given that wasn't looking likely, you know, just taking some proactive decisions about the situation. And I noticed on my world map that there was this chain of islands to my north called the Aleutian Islands. And Justine and I had talked about this idea before, her saying to me, just go there and I'll meet you with a kayak and we'll kayak on together. And I'd always sort of said, no, that's not what we're doing. This isn't the plan this time, Justine. But actually that looked like the only feasible option for me to land safely in my rowing boat, and therefore me be safe and the boat be safe. And then also to be able to carry on the journey the following year in the way that I'd first planned. And so I called her up and I said, so about that Aleutian Islands thing, what do you reckon? And so essentially asking Justine if we could add another phase to the expedition. And with Justine being so experienced in the sea kayak compared to my own limited experience, then that was
so Justine, did you say, you could die, we could die? Did you say that to her? Did you mention the weather?
I didn't need to say that. Sarah knew that.
Right.
But, I think...
you should have mentioned it to her. You're her mate.
Well, actually, I say she knew that. I think that it became apparent on the trip that she wasn't necessarily aware of exactly what she was getting herself into. But I knew. And it was, I mean, it is a really challenging environment to kayak up there. There's really strong currents and they're not charted, so you don't know where they're going to go.
I have to show everybody how challenging it is, Justine, because this is the one thing when I watch to see what you, Sarah, and you, Justin, and all of you adventurers had done, this was the one thing that actually terrified me just watching it. So this is kayaking the Aleutians.
I've ever been in a kayak, and I know that my comfort zone is going to be exploded, not just stretched, but exploded.
We are now going to miss the island, absolutely, definitely.
I was having a naked shower and the bear came.
If you make it halfway, I think your chances are good.
Even the beaver is terrified, right? That's how scary that leg of the trip was. Milika.
Well, seeing the bear alone really scared me. But there are people online. We're actually hearing from adventurers themselves who are watching this or tweeted in earlier. And so they're talking about advice they have for the doubters, for when people tell you you can't or shouldn't do it. This is Ben Saunders. He says, if they're scared of failing, then it helped me to realize that failure is an inevitable part of learning. And Ben took what he says in his bio was the longest ever polar ski journey. This is another tweet. This is from Tristan, who says, you learn far more outside your comfort zone, and the scarier something is, the better a story it will make afterwards. And Tristan tells us he traveled Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan by horse and by mountain bike. So we're hearing those two different stories, but Amy and Mary, I want to go to you with this and what you told the doubters when they said you couldn't build a boat and sail around Lake Michigan.
Yeah, so it was pretty out of the blue for people to hear about it. Like, I didn't have any woodworking experience even to build a boat, but it was something I was really excited about to start. So it was a whole learning process, and I guess I just saw it as like small pieces as I worked. So it helped also to have Amy on my side and to just like ignore those voices. And I knew it couldn't be that crazy if I convinced a friend to go on this trip with me in this handmade boat. Because it was a bit crazy, but it was a dream and that we both wanted to follow, and we knew that we'd be planning as much as possible and wouldn't be taking any unnecessary risks. So yeah, you're always going to hear how it's impossible or that you're going to fail, because we absolutely heard that. Someone told us we should have bought life insurance before we left because they thought we were going to die.
Yeah. Wow. But I think with as much, kind of negativity that we were met with so much more positivity and encouragement to go follow this crazy dream. So the support we got from people that we were meeting along the way and from family and friends was really, really important to us.
Let me take you back.
And in truth as well, probably the most dangerous thing that any of us ever do is get in the car and drive. So, if you look at the statistics of that. Yeah. So we're actually safer out there in the big old wild there, away from other people that can run us over.
So who was filming what with that bear incident? So
that was Justine on the camera there.
So when you were having a shower,
that was really good.
Natural shower. And then there was a bear, and then there was a cat.
Well, Sarah was having a wash in the stream.
Right. That was a little.
I just heard her say. Yeah, she just went, "Oh, Justine, there's a bear." And the last time she had said that to me, the bear was like 100 meters. No, it was like 300. Instead of grabbing like the pepper spray or a flare, I grabbed my camera, rushed up to the top of the bank, and the bear was like 30 meters away and looked like it was coming straight at me by the stage, because of course Sarah had now run behind me, so I was the closest thing to the bear that was edible.
That was a very good move,
if you show the clip, you'll probably take out the swearing, but that was me, I'm embarrassed to say, because that's all I could think of was to swear at this bear. But actually he wasn't coming at me, he was going for Sarah's clothes. And so then Sarah started throwing rocks in the street and he went away. But it was pretty scary. And what footage back with a clear head, you can see he was just going for the clothes and he was curious. But at the time, I thought he was coming for me. He wasn't. My swearing had no effect whatsoever.
And Sarah and Justine, the way that you retell that story, it's clearly a high point. There's a tweet here with a question, Sarah, about the low points. Andrew says, the dark low points and how you handled them, because I know there had to have been really trying times for you. You're all alone for a lot of this journey, Sarah.
Definitely have been some low points. With hindsight, I think they're always the things that make the high points all the richer, and often I think it's the dark moments where you really find out about yourself. You find out about just how far you can push yourself what tricks you can use to get yourself out of those low bits. And I guess, some good lessons about stuff. For me, the biggest low point came in 2012 when that's my boat, Happy Socks there. I was rowing on the Pacific Ocean. I was hit by Tropical Storm Mauer, and the boat was so badly damaged that I had to be rescued. And I lost the boat in the process and returned home rather shell-shocked by the experience. And the sort of fallout, the psychological fallout that followed was really debilitating. I just couldn't really cope. I sank into depression, and that was a really dark time. So ironically, it wasn't when I was out by myself in the middle of nowhere. It was sort of the demons and the dark stuff inside my head once I was back home as a result of that. So in terms of how I got through that, well, it was with the help and support of a lot of friends and family, and one of the folks on my team is Dr. Bryony Nichols, a psychotherapist, and she sort of guided me through the process of putting it to bed, essentially, and putting that experience into a place that didn't hijack me in the middle of the night or in my waking hours, and was somewhere safe, and that I could carry on and go back out to the ocean for a second go. And I think that was also really important to me, was having that positive focus of thinking, well, and feeling, I don't dislike the ocean. I'm not afraid of the ocean just because of what happened. It was just a bad experience, an unfortunate one. You take the risk, and I was really keen that I wanted to go back out there and have another go on the Pacific and continue the journey. So I think that's always been a positive thing in the tough times as well, is sort of thinking ahead, just trying to move forward and sort of remembering nothing lasts forever.
Sarah, so I feel like a horrible
change.
person playing this clip then, okay? So this was obviously not the worst moment, but a bad moment, and I'm queuing it up here because I want to know what was going on with you at this moment here. It's called Upset, I Want to Go Back.
I'm a bit scared, and I don't like it anymore. I want to get back.
Yeah, I'm not too happy at that moment.
Yeah.
That is on the Pacific. Whilst I'm waiting for a pickup, I can see in the background the emergency beacon, the PLB is flashing, which is pinging up my signal to the Japan Coast Guard, who had got a fix on me and were coming out to rescue me. And I remember that I think that was the point where I sort of broke. I'd been through the worst of the conditions. We'd made the decision that I would get picked up afterwards because the boat was so badly damaged. And then it was a waiting game. And if you sort of consider the context of it, that I'm alone, it's been a very frightening few days, not knowing if I was going to be okay, if the boat was going to be okay. I'm exhausted because I haven't slept for that period, and probably some time before, haven't really eaten very much or drunk very much, anything like that. And there's a point at which, you're trying to hold it all together to keep yourself as kind of with it as possible, I suppose, but sort of managing it and not letting the fear take hold, or not sort of completely losing it until you're around people that can keep you safe. And I remember that point when I cried, that did feel a little bit like I was, having a moment, let's say.
What Sarah doesn't tell people, because I think one of her strategies is definitely to keep positive and not dwell on the things that are going wrong, is that when she called for a pickup and realised, because her boat was too damaged, it was 36 hours before the Coast Guard could get to her. So she's in her boat, some of the time it's dark, in conditions which have already damaged her boat beyond the point at which she can continue. And all she can do is wait in that boat, being thrown around and continually capsized. And I think she got capsized 20 times. And every time a little bit more water was leaking into her boat, and she wasn't sure whether the boat would actually continue to self-right. So, I think one of Sarah's strategies is definitely not to dwell on those things that could kill her, and just to feel positive about the future. But and I've heard Sarah talk to people about her adventure many times, and if it was me, I'd be bigging up that moment. I'd be like, I nearly died, it was terrible. And Sarah kind of just glosses over it, and she just said, yeah, I got picked up, and now I'm carrying on.
So
which is I mean, it's a remarkable testament to her strength of character, really.
There's also a tweet that we found that totally backs this up, Justine, this glass half full rather than half empty. Have a look here. It says, I've cried so much in the last 2 days that my face looks cleaner than it has done for a long time. Hashtag economy wash. If that's not the silver lining, I don't know what isn't. Malika.
And Jill, I saw you nodding there during some of the parts that Sarah was talking about being scared and overcoming that. We also got some advice here from Jamie on Twitter. He says, it's okay to be scared. In fact, embrace it, learn to love it, and you'll grow as a person and inspire others around you. And he also says that he is an adventurer as well. And Jill, I know that you've been doing this for 20 years. You rode 25,000 miles, is it, over the past 20 years? So I'm wondering what your advice is to people who are watching, and even your advice maybe to Sarah and to others who are doing this and have faced some of that fear.
Well, I had two thoughts. That's why I couldn't stop myself from nodding. One is that, if we don't exhaust all of our energy trying to control what we can't, then we're left with more time to live as we choose, live the way we want. And one of the very nice things about these trips is that I think sometimes in real life, we have just too many choices. And these trips are about focus. There's a tremendous focus that comes with simplicity. Each day is just about trying to see what we can see, trying to stay alive. And I don't think people know how hard it is sometimes to say no. I mean, for Sarah to call for pickup in the Atlantic, it's not an easy thing. People are very quick to judge success and failure as black and white things. And looking at the data and saying no takes tremendous courage.
I just want to show everybody what Sarah did. We laid it out. We made an animation. So start here on my laptop. So this is Tower Bridge. Know it and love it well in South London. So that's Sarah there setting off. April the 1st? What? Why April the 1st, Sarah? Good memorable date. Okay. So here's our Tower Bridge, and this is Sarah kayaking. Watch the little black emoji here because it will change as she uses different methods of transport. We're going to start off heading across Europe.
So fast.
Very fast. There you go. There was a mishap in Japan, so then we mashed up the boat. And had to get boat number 2, and then we carried on after a break, heading up there across North America. Another mishap. So then that was when Sarah went, okay, I'm actually just going to pick up the journey down here. It had been over 4 years so far, and then we head back to where we started, and then this was just in early November. And she did it. Wow. Okay, lessons learned in 4.5 years. What, Sarah?
Gosh, quite a few, eh? I think perhaps one of the biggest ones about this journey, sort of to come out of this journey, has been the idea of embracing change and embracing the failures. So the Pacific in 2012, that ended in a rescue after Typhoon Mauer, then going back home with another boat, and sort of that whole journey of getting back to being myself again after that big fallout. That was a really important one, that sort of idea of asking for help when things are really tough. It's okay to sort of say, I'm having a really hard time and I need somebody to help save me from myself in my head. So I think that was the first one. And then the second journey on the Pacific, as we mentioned, that phone call between Justine and myself, where we decided that, yes, we would go to the Aleutians the following summer and kayak that whole sort of Aleutian chain, Alaskan Peninsula, to the nearest road so that I could continue the journey. I remember somebody asking me, are you disappointed that you didn't make it to Canada? And actually, no, I wasn't, because I was going to Alaska instead. Yeah. So I think that idea of being open to the journey and kind of rolling with it, so long as you still believe in the overall goal, then being able to embrace the change and make a new plan when you need to actually has given me some of the richest stories of the journey. And I'd say finally, on that note as well, Jill referred to it just then, and obviously in the little animation you showed.
This is your final sentence of this part of the show, so make it good and make it quick.
Oh, I think learning when to say no, when to let go of something. Yeah. So the Atlantic was cut short by the threat of Hurricane Joaquin, and actually saying,
Sarah
that's
Outen,
me out for now.
Amy Lucas and Mary and Justin and Jill, thanks for being adventurous on the stream. Really appreciated it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Hello again, this is the Stream's online post show. We've been talking to Sarah Outen, who recently finished an incredible 4.5-year adventure that took her around the world on a bike, a kayak and rowboat. Let's get personal now. So, where shall I start? Let me start with Lucy. It was kind of good that the boat got wrecked, because then you got to meet your fiance. Well, she wasn't your fiance, first of all, but then love blossomed.
Then she was.
Then she
Exactly.
was. So how did that happen?
That is the most magic thing to come from this journey, is my life now with Lucy. So I met Lucy whilst I was back home after the rescue from the Pacific in 2012. So I met her in early 2013, just before I headed out again on the Pacific Ocean. And we quickly fell in love, and I proposed to her from the middle of the ocean on my Iridium satellite phone. And she said yes.
So what did you say then? Oh, I'm really asking. I'm just curious. You're in this boat and you're in the middle of the ocean, and then how do you broach it? I mean, it's kind of romantic.
We talked about it.
Yeah.
We talked about it a lot.
Okay.
Living together and sort of life hereafter after this journey, and we decided that we'd both ask each other when I got to the other side. But the problem was the other side didn't look like it was happening anytime soon. And so I thought, well, why wait? Why don't I just call her up and go for it?
Yeah.
So I did.
Oh,
and she said yes.
You had to do it twice, though, didn't you?
I did.
You
She
had to
didn't hear
ask
me the
twice.
first time.
So Jill, anything you want to ask Sarah about?
Well, I think people always ask you, about your weaknesses, but what did you find out that you like in yourself? What are you proud of? What are you most proud of?
I really like the fact that I have said no to the Atlantic, no to the idea of going back and doing it again, just driven by the idea of joining up dots. I think that my 25-year-old self might not have said that. So I feel like I've matured as a person. I think that's a good thing.
Getting old.
I know.
There's another question here, Sarah, from John on Twitter, and he wants to know, what was your go-to song or piece of music when your spirits were low? And actually, all of you can answer, because I'm sure you all must have a little piece that helps you keep going. Sarah, you can go first.
Well, I had to really think about this one on the Atlantic, because my iPod charger broke, and I realized that I didn't have the spare. So there was a period of time when I knew that my iPods were going to fail. So I listened to 5 songs every day for 2 weeks until the iPod battery ran itself out. And towards the end, I only listened to Dolly Parton 9 to 5 because it was such a good tune to get me amped that I'd say that was my go-to song on the Atlantic this year. I could do a rendition if you like.
Yeah, can you? Do you have a singing voice?
Let's hear it.
No, I don't.
No,
You probably don't want to.
Yes, you do. Oh my
No,
God.
that's more doing it.
Talking with Sarah, she's not singing.
That doesn't have a singing voice though.
Hey, made up songs. She doesn't need a song with words. She'll just kind of pick some out the air and start singing them. She's very good at occupying her mind.
So Justine, for you, when you're on an adventure, what's the music you love to listen to?
Well, I never take music with me on an adventure, and I don't know why, really. I've never really thought about it. I think for me, when I'm out there, I enjoy listening to the sounds around me. I like listening to the whales, the birds, the sound of the wind, the sound of the waves. I've never really felt the need to take any other music. For me, one of the main things I love about the adventures is that opportunity to be in a wild place where you are away from kind of the normal everyday stuff that you have to worry about and that fills your time when you're home. So yeah, but then I do get to listen to Sarah singing when I'm kayaking with her. So if I needed to be reminded of that sort of thing, I've got my kind of karaoke machine alongside me.
Nice. Jill, what do you listen to when you're off on an expedition?
It's the same thing as Justine. I don't tend to listen to music. I'm rowing backwards and I'm rowing along shoreline, so there's ice and rocks that I can hit, so I really need to be listening. But
Yeah.
the key is to get out of your head sometimes. Sometimes you get one thought that's stuck in your head for 8, 10, 12 hours. And so it's a little bit of a trick figuring out how to entertain yourself sometimes.
Amy, Mary? You had your trip was slightly shorter, so did you have a chance to kind of listen to your iPod favorites?
Well, we had an iPod and it got drenched the first day out on our trip, so then we no longer had an iPod. But every once in a while we would try and sing some songs, but unfortunately neither of us have the most lovely singing voices.
We'd mostly like sing to each other instead of talking to each other, like, hand me the water bottle.
Awful
Did you get sick of each other after a while? I mean, is there a point where you're like, I really like Amy or I really like Mary, but I don't want to spend 90 odd days with the woman and there's no choice?
Right. Luckily, no. I mean, we were good friends before the trip, and we're still good friends now. But that's definitely a question that we get asked a lot. And we would have our little bickering moments, but a few minutes later, we would be cracking up in the boat.
Yeah. And I mean, like, after we finished our trip, after 3 months together, we still went skateboarding together the very next day.
Right.
So nothing had changed afterwards either. I think we got really lucky with that.
You had a very insightful question for Sarah. Do you remember what it was?
I don't.
Let me tell you, because it was so good, I remembered it. Your question was about when you finish your expedition and you have to go back to the real world. And they were curious about the transition, Sarah. How do you make that transition?
The transition so far, this time, after finishing, I mean, I'm three and a bit weeks I think 3 weeks today, actually, from finishing the journey. It's been okay, actually. It's not been too crazy. The very first expedition, sort of big expedition I made on the Indian Ocean, and I came home from having spent 4 months totally alone to people again, was really quite full on and a little bit scary, actually. But I think once you know that that might happen, it actually makes it okay, and you can prepare yourself by sort of giving yourself license to be a little bit weird around people, and you can tell people that actually if you need to disappear and just be by yourself for a while, then they've got to let you. So I haven't been too freaked out by it this time. I think I'm more sort of accepting of it and just roll with the changes, and can reassure myself that, okay, if it feels a little bit scary and weird at times, that's okay, it's expected.
What's the weird part then? People talking to you?
Partly. I think even just something as simple as being inside a house that's got multiple rooms and multiple places that you can leave things and lose them and forget them. And I remember sometimes sort of after the Indian Ocean being very freaked out by just the stuff that's around. And I don't really consider that I have a lot of superfluous stuff at home. It's all kind of things that I use and need, etc. But when you go from being in a very simple environment, essentially, where literally everything that you're carrying has a role to play in terms of your survival, then when you come out to sort of normal life again, there's lots of things around. I can find that a little bit flustering at times.
So you know, Sarah, how you end a trip and you just feel incredibly appreciative of all these little things, like whatever, dry toilet paper or an orange.
Hot shower.
And over time, those things kind of fade and you take them more for granted. But are there one or two things that you really don't want to lose that sort of keen sense of appreciation for?
Well, I'll never lose appreciation of the fact that now I'm with Lucy full time, and being able to see my friends and family on a more regular basis. That for me is the most special and wonderful thing, and the best thing about being home. So as I was approaching Tower Bridge the other day, I actually wanted to turn around. I felt a little bit freaked out by all the people, and I just thought, I'd really like to just paddle back up the river and be alone and quiet for a little while. And actually, since coming ashore and sort of once I got ashore, just seeing all those people that had helped make the journey happen and all the people that I loved was just so special, just so magic.
Sarah, one of the things we haven't even touched on is something that our community brought up. We asked them if they've ever wanted to go on an adventure or an exploration and what stopped them. And the answer we got the most was this one. Kabir says, financial issues. How did you do it financially?
Financially, I had to be a bit creative, I suppose, to make the whole budget work. Because for this expedition, and I definitely think it's not a given that it has to be, but this expedition was expensive. It involved specially made boats far out to sea quite often, and a series of complex expeditions at times. So it was a big budget, and it involved getting a lot of corporate sponsorship to help make that happen, putting all of my savings and earnings in. I've now got about £30,000 worth of debt, and so taking a bit of a gamble, I suppose, in terms of taking out a loan and so on, borrowing some money. That for a big expedition that requires a lot of money, I think financial considerations are often the biggest and most challenging thing in making the journey happen. But you can do plenty of really cool, exciting adventures for far less money. So I think that's a really important thing to remember. I guess what you're trying to do and how you're doing it. Sometimes maybe just scaling back and doing something a little less involved financially, then you can still have an amazing adventurous experience.
See, Amy and Mary, you totally get that as well. So sorry, Jill. Let me just ask Amy and Mary that, because you couldn't even afford to buy a boat. So you did what?
Right. Like I couldn't even buy a boat for myself. So that's when I decided to build it, and then that's when it escalated into 2 years into building the boat. Amy and I got the idea for the trip. So the past, I don't know how many years of my life have been very financially conscious, but that's made it all the more interesting and all the more fun with those challenges because, we did crowdfunding, but we didn't raise that much money. So then we just had to be more creative and get ideas from people. And
and like you were saying, anything that we took with us had to be multi-purpose, multi-use. So it was fun to be thrifty in different ways. And when we needed some sort of funding or resources, luckily people were excited about our trip and were willing to help us out.
Yeah,
Jill.
But mostly it was just whatever we could make work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jill, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Well, I think it's important to remember that you don't have to go on a 3-month trip or a 3-year trip for it to be an adventure, and I'm often asked, what's the difference between a 1-day or a 1-week trip and a 1-year trip? And I don't think there is that much difference. You bring along the same gear. Certainly the amount of food is different, but the first part of any trip is you're thinking about whatever you have to do to get away. And the last part of a trip, you're thinking about whatever it is that you're coming back to. So what a longer trip gives you is more time to be fully present in whatever place you are. And so that's what I love about the long trips. But it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to involve any more than, putting on a pair of sneakers and walking around the block and keeping your eyes open.
I do an expedition every day then. Who knew? Have a look here at my laptop. This is a naughty question, but I'm going to ask you this anyway, Sarah. Are you sick of Mars bars? It's like, how many of those things did you have to eat in 4.5 years?
Have to eat?
No, I don't think I could ever get sick of Mars bars. No.
Do you have any spare ones?
No, honestly. I do.
So Mars was one of your sponsors, and there was the points in your journey where I could just see them like stacked up as your a part of your food supply.
That's amazing.
Which is kind of fun to kind of have that. I don't know how you have the discipline not to eat all the Mars bars in one go, though.
She doesn't have the discipline.
Yeah, see, now we're getting to it. This is the true journalism. Justin, tell me about the discipline about eating Mars bars or not eating Mars bars. Go ahead.
Well, Sarah, I think it's in her personality of wanting to make the most of every moment. She's not the best at rationing. If there's something she likes and there's 5 of them right there, she doesn't see the point in like spreading out that pleasure. Why have one pleasure when you could have 5 pleasures all at once?
Exactly.
So we would have like boiled sweets on the trip or something, and like we would have a competition to see who could how long they would last. But it was stupid because I always won. And like Sarah put like 5 in her mouth at once, and I would put 1 in, and then hers would all be gone, and I'd be like, "Oh, where's your sweet?" It's Sarah's personality, like to have 5 times that pleasure, bam, exploding in your mouth, is like the way she likes to do it.
Sarah, I want to wrap up here with one last question for you. This is Will Yeats. He says he's an adventurer and a documentary maker, and he says, what's next, and can I come with you? We only have a minute, so you have to really make that quick, but what is next?
I'm getting married in June. That's my next adventure. And I'm afraid you can't come on that one, Will. That's just me and Luz.
All right.
Well, I hope I'll be there at the party along with other people. Obviously not the, you know.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit, we might have to edit this out a little bit later, but because we're live right now, I just want to play this for you. Okay, Lucy? So, Jeff, are you ready? Here we go.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets, the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living.
All right, bring the music down.
Thank you very much.
I want to come and adventure with all of you. Sarah and Amy and Mary and Justine and Jill, thank you for a very special edition of the stream. We really enjoyed your company. It's been epic. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.